Welcome back, everybody, to part 5 of our series where we are building our trading strategy for our trading robots. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, I had to wait till the market was open on a wonderful Monday in order to test out the rest of the code necessary in order to get everything to work. Now, I did want to mention some things before we actually get into the whole process of doing the main loop that's going to be defining the strategy. So just keep an FYI out for that, only because it's going to impact things like data collection. But in the previous video, what did we do? Well, we focused more on the actual trade object itself. Now, this was the template, basically, so the order template that we're going to be leveraging. And we saw that we can take an existing template, modify components with it, or modify components of it with simple functions and method calls. And so that, again, is not necessarily there to replace the entire order building process, but really designed to simplify and enhance the experience. Now, at the end of the day, you have ultimate control over building your order, so you can go into the raw JSON itself and modify it to meet whatever needs you want. But ideally, over time, there's going to be more methods, more functions to help, again, simplify and enhance that process. So like I said, in today's video, we're going to be focusing on the main trading loop. So let's get started. Alrighty, so we are now on the point where we are going to build the main trading loop. So I'm going to show you basically how we initialize that main loop. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say while, and we're going to go to our trading robot object, and there is a property called regular market open. This will return true as long as the UTC time falls within the regular market hours. And if it does, then it's going to return true, and this loop will keep going. If we do not fall within the regular market hours on UTC time, then it returns false, and then the loop would cease to run. So for example, if I was just to do something like print hello, and then we'll do something like time.sleep, and then we'll do like 4 seconds, something like that. I think I imported time. If I didn't, I will import it right up here. So we'll import time. And so with this one, it will sleep for 4 seconds and then print hello. So we'll see what happens. You can see the grabbing new access token. Why did it not work? Is it something? We'll do this because sometimes, oh, I see, because I did up here is time. And then I'm going to say true time. That's the problem with the date time module and regular time, is sometimes they get confused and they don't know which one to import. So let's try this one more time. Okay, so then it's going to wait 4 seconds, and then it's going to print hello again, and basically go through this entire loop. So that's how this is designed to work, is it would only execute during market hours, and then if it's not market hours, then it wouldn't run. So that's one way where you can ensure that trading only happens during a certain time frame, which is really important, because the next thing I'm about to mention is related to historical price data. Now, I'm going to define a line in my main loop, and it's going to be called grab the latest bar. The intention of this one is it's going to grab the most recent bar from the historical prices endpoint. Now, why is this important? Well, the main purpose of this is designed to make it where if you're trading at minute level data, then you're going to only get the latest minute level bar using this method, right? So it's not going to give you every single bar as the prices come in. Really, the intention of it is to wait until that bar closes. And once that bar closes, then it gets you the latest bar. So a lot of times the indicators require you to wait until the bar closes before you make the actual trade. And so you don't want to make the trade, in between the bar actually opening and closing. Instead, what we're going to do is wait until the bar closes. Now, why can this be problematic? Well, part of it has to do with the fact of It depends when you're trading. So for example, if you were trading over the weekend like I did, then what can happen is this will fail. Why is that? Well, you can see here, it's just constantly pulling the latest price, but you'll notice that the time bar is not changing. The only thing that's changing is the volume. So what we're really looking for is this time to change. And once it changes, then from there, we know we have the latest bar. The problem is if you are trading over the weekend, it never sends you a new bar. That's because after post market, the stream stops. So the streaming API stops, and then the regular traditional API stops as well. So what does that mean? It means you can't get the latest bar. So that means you can only use the API during regular market hours, and then a few hours after and a few hours before the regular market hours. Now, some people have reached out and said, well, Alex, how do I get around this? Well, you can't using the TD API, unfortunately. The reason why is because if they're not providing you the data, you don't have the data. There's nothing to add to it. Now, this is where people can say, well, what are some options I have? This is where I was mentioning in one of the earlier videos, the ones that was talking basically the project overview, you might have to look at a different data streaming API. So that's not necessarily a bad thing because, again, ideally we can make this stock frame, flexible, where as long as you provide the same candle bar naming convention as the TD Ameritrade one, at least initially, then it should be able to process it and do something like that. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a later video, only because that's going to require us to rewrite some of the original code and stuff like that. But as of right now, I do want people to be aware of that, which is if you try to use the robot during market hours where the data stream isn't active, guess what? You can't actually leverage it because nothing's changing. No data is changing. No new data is coming in. So with that in mind, we're going to grab the latest bar. Once we have the latest bar, we want to add that to the stock frame. So we're going to add the latest bar to the stock frame. Well, guess what? That's not too bad either. We call our stock frame object, and there's an add rows method, and then it requires the dictionary of data, right? And so in this situation, we're just going to provide the latest bars. Now, technically, if there was multiple bars getting back to you, then you would have multiple candles. Now, once you add that latest bar, what else do we want to do? Well, we want to refresh the indicators. What do we mean by refreshing it? Well, we have new data, so we need to recalc the indicators using the latest data. So we're going to take our indicator client, and then there's a method called refresh that will refresh all of the indicators to include the latest one. So this will make it a little bit snappy. So that way you're not sitting there waiting for it to reload the data and then reorganize columns, parse the columns, and all this and that. The idea is that when we add it into it, all of that has been taken care of, and we can simply do something which is recalc all the indicators, and we should be good to go. Now, something I like to do in these situations is I do like to print stuff out, because that way visually I know it's working the way I wanted it. So I'm going to do print, and then we'll do current stock frame, and then we'll put a little colon there, and then we're going to do print, and then we're going to do not a double hyphen, we'll just do a single hyphen, and then we'll do 50 wide, and then we're going to do print, and then it's going to be stock frame, and then there's a symbols group, and then I want the tail from that symbol group. So I want the last 5 rows. Now from here, then we're also going to basically leverage a lot of the same line breaks. This is just to make it where it's a little bit, simple and nothing crazy. And then we'll do print and then a line break like that. Now from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait till the next bar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the last bar timestamp so we can calculate how long to wait until the next bar. So we'll do last bar timestamp equals last row. We're then going to do indexed and then get, oh wait, we need to do one more thing. Oh, we need to get the last row. Sorry about that. So we're going to first grab the last row, and we're going to do last row equals trading robot. We're going to do stock frame, so our stock frame object. Because it's a data frame, we can grab that frame property, which returns the actual frame itself. And then we can do the tail method of it as well. So we can do tail, but more specifically, we only want the last row. And so in this situation, we'll grab the last row. And then from here, we're going to do last row index, get level values. And then we're going to grab that first one, right? So that's just going to grab us the timestamp. And then we're going to wait till the next bar. And then we'll do trading robot and then wait till next bar, last bar timestamp equals the last bar timestamp. So let's see what this does. Now, where are some problems that can potentially cause issue, right? Well, one potential issue is that each individual stock has different bars, right? So let's say, the data quality isn't great. And so maybe we have Fuel Cell and then we'll say Virgin Galactic as just another example, right? Well, what's the problem with that? Well, let's just say with Virgin Galactic, the timestamp is 2 minutes delayed and then Fuel Cell, it's only 1 minute delayed. Where could this get into a problem? Well, if I grab the last row of the actual data frame, then potentially what could happen is it's going to wait a certain amount of time and then the other stock, the bar will not have actually formed. So there's problems with it. There's definitely things that have to be overcome. And a lot of that really just, again, boils down to the data that's coming in. Now you're hopefully starting to see why the data is so important. If the data sucks, you have to then code for all these little anomalies that potentially could pop up. Things like each one having a different timestamp. That's why if you're really serious about this and potentially you have access to a data stream where it might cost a few bucks a month, but you don't have to worry about any of those anomalies, sometimes it's worth it to just invest in that, because otherwise the amount of coding that you have to do in order to fix those anomalies potentially could cause a lot of issues. It's not to say you can't overcome it. It's just you have the time and resources to overcome those challenges. Now, you can see also what happens. Well, sometimes you get little anomalies like these where the sleep time is 0, and then it's going to keep calling and calling until the bar changes. This is another thing that potentially can cause issues, because if it makes too many requests too quickly, then what happens? Well, then we hit the threshold for data request. And it's not necessarily anything bad. It's just that the bar hasn't changed, but then it tricked it a little bit. So, there's just little things like that we have to be aware of. Now, this one's technically a little bit easier to overcome because it's super straightforward. You would just do like a little try and accept, but there are little things like that you have to be aware of. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pause it so that way we can go to the next thing. What we're going to do right here is we have our stock frame. Now what we're going to do is check for the signals, right? So from here, we're going to do a new variable, call it signals. I'm going to call my indicator client. There is a check signals method, and that will check all the signals. Now from here, we're going to have hopefully a Panda series of signals. So now what we're going to do from here is we're going to define the buy and sell signals. So you can have multiple signals generated if you had multiple stocks potentially. So the buys, we want to separate those ones. We'll take our signals, we'll grab the buys, and then we'll say, okay, convert that to a list that we can then easily loop through if necessary. And then we're going to do the same thing with the sells. We're going to take our sells, convert it to a list, and then we're good to go. Now, once we've done that, I like to print out the symbols as well. So you can see a little repetitive pattern here. I like to have things print out on my terminal. So we're going to say current signals. And then from here, we're going to add a couple different things. So we're going to have print. We'll do something like symbol. And then we'll have something like that. And then we'll do format. If I can type today, it's early in the morning. List, trade, dictionary, 2 keys. And then we'll do that. Let me make sure I'm doing this, and then 0. And then there's that. So there's our symbol. Here's obviously a little bit of an easier way to do this, but for right now, this will be fine. And then we'll have ownership status. So whether we own it or not, ownership status. This one is going to be the ownership dictionary. And then really in this situation, because we only have one, we can actually make this a little bit easier. We can actually just do the trading symbol. That's another easier way to do it, to be honest. Again, because I only have one, I can technically do this, but if I had multiple, it'd be a little bit different, obviously. So I'm actually gonna do that up there as well. And then I'm gonna put that little print thing there as well. And then we have that. And then from here, I want to make sure everything is good. Oh, this one. Okay, so then we'll have the ownership status, and then we're going to have the buys and the sells. So then we're going to have print the buy signals. And then with this one, it's kind of the same thing. And then we're going to do format, and then we're going to do buys. And then you guessed it, we're going to have the same kind of output for the cells. And then this one is going to be the cells instead. And then from here, we don't need the rest of those. But let's just take a look and see what the output looks like, just to make sure first there's no errors. That's really the important thing. So you can see here, buy signals are true. So we actually have a buy signal. And then we can see that it's actually waiting. So what was our buy signal? Well, if we remember correctly, it's basically that the SMA 50 is above the SMA 200. So that actually looks correct. So that means we are good to go on that one. So then from here, what I'm actually going to do next, hopefully in enough time to see an order be placed, I'm actually going to show you what it looks like to place an order. So that's actually convenient. I didn't think it would happen this morning, but luckily for us, it does happen. That's awesome. So we'll do the ownership dictionary. We'll do the trading symbol like we did. Apologize if I go a little bit fast, but I want to try to see if I can get you guys to see the orders happen real time. So again, I apologize if I move a little bit fast, but I just want to show that. So then we're going to do trading robots, and then we're going to do execute signals. Signals will be the signals that we pass through. And then from here, trades to execute. Well, that's just going to be our trading dictionary like we did. And then I'm going to basically do the same exact thing below, but now I'm going to do it for the opposite one. And so this one is if we do own it and we have cells, then you can go through the cell aspect of it. So from here, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to then say, okay, ownership dictionary. I'm going to take my trading symbol and I'm going to set that equal to true. No, I'm going to set that equal to true. And then I'm going to do buy order. And then I'm going to do trade equals, and then trades dictionary, trading symbol. And then from here, I'm going to do the buy, and then I'm going to do the trade func. And then we have our buy order, our order. And then, well, we'll just put this as an order for right now. I'm not going to do anything super crazy. And then, sorry, that needs to be equal. Okay. So this one's kind of the same idea down here. This would be false. And then this one would be now the sell. And then it's still the trade function. So all this is doing is if we don't currently own it and we have a buy signal, execute the trade, make sure we update the ownership status because now we technically own it, quote unquote. The order hasn't been filled, so we don't technically own it, but let's just assume it's a market order. It's going to fill really fast. So we need to say, well, now we technically own it, so we don't want to buy it again in this situation. And then at this point, I'm also grabbing the order. This one will make, I think, a little bit more sense once we get to it, but basically it's a way for us to check the order status. So what we'll do from here is I'm going to run it again. I'm hoping no errors or anything like that. I just want to see if it put it in. Let's see if it did. Oh, I think it did. I think it did. Huzzah, maybe it did. 1214, perfect. So it put it in. That's awesome. It means it actually was successful. That's awesome. So you can see here, it did do it. Disregard the request body right now. I'm still trying to fix this, so just mind that. I'm still trying to clean that up where it makes it look all pretty and everything. But we can see that now it did it, right? And so it might still generate a buy signal, but it's not going to actually execute it because now we officially own it. So in this situation, we would be waiting for it to actually go through it again. Now, there's a very, very, very big caveat to this. If I was to stop the script now and then I was to run it again, I don't check anywhere right now where I'm saying like, does it currently exist in my portfolio? So this is, again, just highlighting things you need to think about. Like, it was really easy to do it and purchase it. But right now I've created a situation where if I was to boot this up again and have it run again, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to purchase it, because right now I'm hard coding this. Really, what I should be doing is I should be checking my portfolio and saying, wait a minute, do I actually own it to begin with? Now, sometimes people might say, well, I don't need to do that. That's totally a valid response too. It depends on how you're trading. If one of your requirements is, if I already own it, do not purchase it again, then you need to have that check in there before you actually run the script. But if that's not a requirement for you, then you don't need to worry about that. If you don't mind purchasing it over and over again, you could do that as well. Albeit it's probably a specific situation where you would want to do that, but that's just something you need to think through. Like right now, if I stop it and run it again, it's going to purchase it again because it's going to see that there's a buy signal and that I don't currently own it because I don't currently have it anywhere where it's going to be checking to see if I own it. And you can see it works for the most part. It adds the latest bar and stuff like that. So it's working as expected. It's just you have to think through some of those caveats. So I'm going to actually kill the script right now. And then from here, I did want to talk about one final thing, and that's the order itself. Sometimes you need to check the order status before you actually, before you actually go and see what happens. So like, for example, you need to go see if it was filled or something like that. So I'm adding in some functionality that is going to check the status of it. The idea behind this is we could put it on its own little separate thing where it checks the status. So what do I mean by checking the status? It would actually go out, make a call to the TD Ameritrade API, and then see if it's canceled. It would see if it's expired and stuff like that. Because I do see this used pretty heavily where people will say, I don't want to go to my next position until my current position is filled. So there are situations like that where they don't want to move until the order has been filled. So that's what the check order status is designed to do, is it's allowing you to go and check it on a certain cadence, maybe every 2 seconds when you specify it. And then based on the result of that status check, then you could make your robot a little bit more complex. So just, again, more functionality. I'm not necessarily saying you have to use it, but this has just been my experience where I've worked with people and they say, well, I trade like this. So basically, when I hear their feedback, I say, oh, interesting. I wonder if that's something that should be integrated into the robot or not. So that's one of those things where potentially it could be. But with that being said, that actually ends this particular series of doing a simple trading strategy. So simple by, looking at it, you can see there's a lot that we're assuming behind the scenes, things like ownership, things like we don't mind purchasing it over again, things like we only want to trade during the regular market hours, things like we're trading at minute level data. So you can see there's a lot of assumptions that went into this. It's not to say you can't make those assumptions dynamic. It just means you might have to code more. So that's why I think it's important we start with a simple example to see like, okay, this is the logic flow. These were the assumptions I made. Now, when we go into the next series and let's say, okay, let's change this assumption. Let's change the assumption that we're going to hard code our ownership. What would it look like if we want to make that look dynamic, right? So now with that assumption understood, we can go to the next video and start modifying it. And then we're not completely lost as to why we needed to modify it to begin with. Now, at this point, if you do have any final questions for our simple example, feel free to put them down in the comments below. If you are new to the channel, feel free to subscribe as well. And then also, if you want to leverage the code in this particular video, make sure to follow me on GitHub. That's where I'm currently storing this code, and I have other repositories as well. Probably what we're going to do next is I'm going to take a break from the trading robot for probably the next series. The next series, we're going to move over to a data factory, and we're going to show you how to collect data that you might want to use in your trading robot, and then show you how we can build those pipelines and stuff like that. I'll probably also introduce another API. I am looking at other APIs for data streaming in the form of prices and stuff like that. So I will also probably be introducing another API, so that way people, if you want to see different options, you can see that as well. So that's where I would say is that would be the next one that's related to trading robot. After that, I'm probably going to move into a machine learning one where we're going to do logistics regression. The only reason I say that is because also part of the trading robot series is we're going to do an integration of a machine learning service. So we need a model in which to integrate. We're going to start with logistic regression. We'll find the way to integrate that into Azure machine learning services, and then we'll figure out how to integrate it into our bigger scheme. So there's a lot coming. There's definitely a lot coming, especially for those of you who just want a whole broad audience of different services and really figuring out how to make not just a trading robot, but really a trading system. This is going to be awesome for people like you because we're going to be covering a lot. So thank you again for watching, everybody. We'll see you in the next series.